it. The only thing is the link to the Saturday show will be
Right.
on that group, on the LinkedIn group, not on the website,
Right. Right.
because that is only for some people. I mean, not the idea is not to have a general kind of this thing, because it's a very small
Right.
group. Yeah,
Smaller
it's a small group. So why
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the kind of
Looks
discussion
like,
that we have?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a time, but it looks like it's just you and me.
Exactly, no problem. Look, Keto, I this International Mediators Collective. I used to be sitting alone also.
Oh,
When I
really?
started months back, I started it. I said, look, I have fixed a time for the meeting.
Right.
I'm going to sit there. Doesn't matter. I mean, come on, come. I'm doing my work also. Whatever keeps happening, I'm doing that.
Right.
So,
Right.
so
When did you start?
it's been about how many months now? Somewhere last year. Uh,
Right. Well, so it's less than a year now.
yeah, less than a year. Less than a year.
Right.
Basically,
Right.
during the lockdown itself, I
Right.
just decided that this was something which I really wanted to really promote. There is and promote it in the manner. Look, you had lots of webinars happening, lots of people talking about mediation as such, practice of mediation and everything. I said the mediator is getting lost in the picture,
That's quite right. Yes.
and I actually feel there is a link there. There is a certain kind of a common thread between them, and we
Mm,
have to find it.
mm,
So that
mm.
started this process, and I think there is something, Kato. I don't know whether you've been going through all these episodes. There is definitely some common thing which is coming out.
And what's the reason that you have this sort of Zoom as in parallel to YouTube?
You
You want to
look YouTube,
have a different audience?
yeah, because the thing is that the way these shows were going on, they were going on for hours. So definitely people were not wanting to sit in the Zoom thing because they wanted to see it at their convenience.
Right.
So they keep watching it, and they're out there for life. They lie out there for life. I mean, they can keep watching it. So
Mm.
that, I mean, look, with Andrew, it went on for 4 hours. So you can't expect some people to sit for 4 hours. We are
Four
passionate.
hours.
4 hours. You went off to sleep.
What was it? 4 hours. I think I managed to make 2 hours, but he went on for 4 hours.
Yes, that's the,
Oh,
and the main thing is that there was no break taken. No
wow.
break taken.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's a record.
Well, and the following day, he took part in a different interview on the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the competition. He did a competition also, something else also he did that
Yeah,
day.
but it was something India.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, I saw him quite a lot there for these days.
No, I think he's very passionate about doing things in India. He has that thing. He wants.
Yes, yes. Right. Well, and I now understand why, because yeah, it's deeply in his body, right,
Yeah,
since
yeah,
his younger age. Right?
exactly.
Yeah. It's not
And
something. Yeah.
I think there is also something about India. Definitely, like Lisa was saying, her
Yeah.
connect with India. Once you have that connection, I
Right.
think it stays with you and you want to continue it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Whatever it is, you'll also get to know when you come here. Maybe there is something to that.
Mind you, that's quite common to see that English young people who take the gap year just before entering the university, take a gap and a half a year, and go to places like India. Some may
Yeah.
prefer to South America, but they get shocked.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's very important. I think that cross-cultural experience and being out there on your own, managing life in a totally different new place,
Mm,
teaches you a lot. I think it teaches you
oh
a lot.
yes, yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the only time you can do it, because once you get into your work, taking out 2, 3 people to go out for 2, 3 months and maybe more.
Mm, mm.
Because what we have in India, we have these young people who are part of the this I mean, they get recruited to the army there, Israeli army. I
Right,
mean, the young people have to go through a certain period there. So they, after they finish, they come here
right.
and they spend a few months here.
Yeah. Is that compulsory in India?
No, no, not in India. In Israel. Israel. I was talking about Israel. India, there's
Oh,
nothing.
it's Israel. Right?
Those Israeli kids then come here after they finish that training, whatever that uh,
Right.
time they spent in the army. Yes, facilitator. You are going to be the facilitator.
No,
What is it? Sometimes you're the fantastic host. Sometimes you're the facilitator. Do I have a role to play anywhere or not?
Not
I'm
really.
changing. I know, not really. I don't. No one wants that.
no. Yesterday evening, I was facilitating a dialogue. So I had to put facilitator on my check in. So I just didn't change it since then.
You were very tired. You were very tired.
Yes, yesterday, yesterday was very interesting actually because it was an organization, maybe you heard of it. It's called Kids Managing Conflict. So it's a group of children who mediate, do peer mediation, and they've started their own organization in California, and they help other high schools start that. So basically doing what you're thinking about doing. And so we
Do we
were
have?
facilitating a dialogue for them about the challenges of doing online peer mediation.
But do we get to see these videos?
They don't do videos. It's a private talk. We're just facilitating the conversation.
No, look, the way I look at Lisa, the kind of time you spent, and this is valuable time, we should all benefit from it.
Mm.
Yeah, but I can't. I mean, this is with another organization. This is their rules.
You should tell them, give them the larger vision that look, the world needs this, and you kids are doing it, and they don't, maybe they don't understand that this is not something which is happening all over the world. It is something that you've created, which is a damn good thing, and children all over the world should be able to see this and follow certain things. I'm saying, look, culturally, there might be changes in terms of the structure. There could be changes, whatever it is, but let them discuss it within themselves,
Oh,
create that
yes, but
platform.
if they're having a dialogue about things they want to discover, they want to make that private. So that's why. But certainly they did say that they are looking at trying to help people beyond California and all over the world. But I don't know specifically. I want to talk to their organizers. But the kids are the ones who run the
Only the kids.
organization.
Yeah. It has to be the kids only. I mean, I just want that platform for peer mediation. Only the kids discussing within themselves. They don't need anyone else. They know exactly what
Well,
to do. But
yeah, but the thing is that they're also not excluding the adults. The adults are there and part of it, but the children are leading it.
yeah, that's the way it has to be. Because they have to get that feeling that
So
this is something that is exactly the way they want to take it forward. And they're smart. They're smart, Lisa. They really know how to go about things. And it's a new way of looking at things. Over the last so many years that you've lived on this planet, there is a certain thought process you've created, and there's a lot of baggage also that you carry in that thought process. And these people don't have that baggage, so they can start afresh with at any point. I mean, we don't know what direction they'll take, how they'll go about it. I mean, it's something that should be so open, because even giving them the slightest direction means you're taking it to a place that you've already been. We want them to go to a place they haven't been, because things are obviously not in terms of whatever, if we call it peace and mediation, culture of mediation, or lots has to happen. What do you think, Kato? In Japan, are they is there peer mediation? Is peer mediation happening there? Children doing mediation for children?
Not really, right? But maybe that we don't call it mediations, right? But some children may be doing spontaneously. We hear a lot about school bullying problems,
Mm-hmm. Right.
you know, I haven't. It's my only speculation, but mass media tends to focus on something newsworthy, right?
Yeah, actually,
And
the
they tend to
positive things.
ignore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they only look at the horrible things so that
Absolutely.
they can meet the expectation of the audience. Right?
So
I,
that's why, yeah, please. You were saying something.
yes. So I, I, I would think the majority of children are probably doing okay. despite the challenging sort of situations there, it's tough for children, I think, right? Because they can't go to school. They cannot go to school. They have nobody to talk to. And I think it's all over the world, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, parents are working at home, and that makes it worse. Right?
Yep, yep.
Right. So,
Yes, no running in the forest. Or maybe they could go in the forest. I don't know.
I know the outdoor activities, they should be doing these outdoor activities. That I think is something.
yeah.
And then there are problems that come with the internet that now a lot of people are talking about, and that is the communication on the internet. Now kids are looking at, what kind of earbuds do you have?
Yep.
What kind of, and they're now starting to make clicks based on who has what kind of equipment you have. Now it's not what you wear, it's what other things you have. It's like, that's
No, but I think,
interesting.
Lisa, you must have seen this happening over time yourself. Society would have been changing as you grew up also. The materialism must have come in there. I mean, I don't know, when you grew up, was it already there? It came in later? Because India, obviously, it was the liberalization came in quite late. So definitely materialism came in majorly after that. I mean, I don't, Kato would not know this, but up till 1991, it was a very closed economy, economically. So you had this one model of two models of cars. Actually, there was
That's right. That
there was a
ambassador and the
yeah.
other one.
The third one, the Suzuki obviously came in with a tie-up here. So they had that third model which came in, and that was in '84 actually. That did come in '84. But before that, there was a huge waiting list to get a car. I mean, you had to wait sometimes for an year or maybe more also to get a car. Can you imagine that? So there were scooters which were also sold, I think, years for. I mean, it was a big thing that you got that allotment and you were going to pick up a scooter. So we had a closed economy. So materialism, obviously, and after 1991, a lot came in here. But in societies where that wasn't the case, that must have come in much earlier. I don't know what you would have seen, Kato, in Japan with the children and everything.
I think the children these days, many people say, are spoiled with so all the sort of gadget, etc., material things there. But we hear these days that and I can partly agree to that, the income of their parents just becomes so depressed. Right? Therefore, we are also talking about poverty among the children, which is, at first I thought, well, come on, it can't be, right? But the fact of the matter is that occasionally I teach to university students, right? And in my discussion with them, and compare with how it was when I was a student, right? Of course, things are different, excuse me, but I could manage to keep studying without working part-time at my student time, right? So no waiter or waitress jobs, right? And occasionally I did work, but that was so that I can do sort of extra curriculum activities, not studies there. But these days, the parents can only say, sorry, kids, or sorry, that's all we can afford to you, and you have to make it up yourselves, right? And that was a surprise to me. And when I raised this one to one of the Japanese law professors, he echoed and he said that, well, when I was much younger, right, then the professor, when he was in good mood, we continued discussion for hours and hours and hours, just like you had with Andrew the other day.
And with Lisa also, almost 4 hours there.
But he said he continued at B. But these days, if I extend it, say by 10 minutes, then students said, sorry, professor, I have to go because I have work to do. Right?
That's sad. Yeah, that's sad because actually the learning comes in after the class. Actually, when you start having that interaction, that informal interaction, a lot of learning happens from there.
Yes. So things have changed.
But is it because of the fact that the needs of the kids have changed, or is it that financially the parents have got affected, or is education become very expensive?
I don't think it, oh, there's a mixture, right? I think you said probably all elements there. But largely, I feel that because there are much larger number of people working, and I'm not raising it because I have anything bias against ladies, but the more people are chasing for works. And then if the basic economics works, right, then there's a more demand for, not more supplies for the works, and therefore the real wages levels are dropping. And that's affecting the households. And it's become a bit of a vicious circle, isn't it? Well, when the house income, total income is lower, then many mothers said, maybe I should start working, doing whatever cashier at the supermarket, right? And that depresses the wages. Right? So I'm a bit concerned because these days, the kids or children who are successfully enter into the top tier universities, they all come from rich families.
That's sad.
Because they can afford to have a private tuitions or prep school, special tuitions, right?
So that mix is not there now. So that mix is going to, and those for those children also, I think I mean, the whole learning experience with all kinds of children, I think that was important.
It used to be, but I think it has changed. And when I was sort of a middle school or teenagers, it was very much like what Andrew said, right? Only a small fraction of the classmates will go into the higher educations. But now something like the 80% go to universities.
But do you think it's now the whole thing will happen in reverse now? Again, the kids will stop going to university. Will that happen?
I think there is a quiet review going on, right? Because we know that the freshmen at the age of 18, they are quitting. Some of them are quitting because they say, for the financial reasons, I cannot continue.
So it's going to be a change. We'll see that.
Yeah, it's very sad. And particularly, they say that I was promised or I was led to believe sort of campus life, right? Gorgeous one, exciting ones. But what happened was, as we're talking, it's just online stuff, right? Which is going on now for a year.
Yeah.
And then that's not what I was promised to be given. That's not what I paid, right?
I know that. Yeah.
It's a bit sad, but hopefully things will be changing. Right?
But I think maybe, Kato, what we should look at is that maybe because of this whole online thing, and now maybe with everyone getting used to it, maybe university education the cost might come down, because there is one university which has started in India, which is an online university only.
Yeah.
So if these online universities come in, you don't have an infrastructure cost in that sense, in the buildings and the maintenance and all that. So maybe the cost of education comes down. And a lot of people who right now could have taught them are not teaching because they don't want to get into a full-time teaching thing. They can come out and they can do classes. So I think the whole structure can change. Hi, Savat.
Well, that may be true, but I think one of the
Vikram.
How are you?
Lisa.
Hello.
Hi.
You met Savat came in last time. You met him
Yes.
or not? Savat, you have to tell them where you are right now.
We're talking about education.
No, I'm saying you know where Savat is. It's in Cambodia.
Right?
Yeah, I'm from Cambodia.
Yes, we talked about Buddhism,
wonderful.
right? Yes.
Yeah.
little bit, Samad, what we moved away from spirituality for the moment, because what we were discussing was that how materialism with children, how that had spread. But Kato is saying that over time, things in Japan have changed, where maybe because the income levels have come down, so there is a pressure on the families. And one is, of course, materialism. The other is even in education. To reach that point he was talking about, where even university education, they might stop doing it. The people are, that thought process is happening, and there is some change happening. So that is why I was just talking about the online education. Maybe it can become a more equalizing factor. So that's what.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, Kato, what were you saying?
I mean, it can, but I think that children, like I said before, children also have to learn how to use it, because that what I observed from my own grandchildren is they don't know how to learn online. And I was so surprised that they had no idea, or that how they can use the internet effectively. They know how to do TikTok and they know how to do all of those things, but they don't know how to do research. And they don't know that right at their fingertips is they can explore the world. My youngest grandchild, she's got it. I mean, the older one is the one who's struggling. So I think it needs to be taught in the early ages, and they need to be given permission to go explore on the internet, because then when they get older, then they know, oh, I can find everything. I can find every research article, I can find every thing I need available. But if they don't know that, I mean, one granddaughter was taught, oh, you shouldn't go on the internet, because that she thought that's plagiarism. If she writes and a paper and she looked on the internet, she thinks that that's not fair. And then I had to explain to her that you look up the information, you put it in your own words.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
the main thing.
use it for information. She didn't get that distinction. So when they were trying to teach her not to copy, she understood that as I'm not allowed to do it.
Yeah,
So there was a misunderstanding in the way they taught it, so that she didn't understand the difference between the two.
yeah. How much you have to take from there, how much you have to put on your own, all that aspect of it. Because a lot of universities, they do that. They actually check. They have a software. They run
Mm-hmm.
your paper through that and check whether you've actually picked up, how much have you picked up, and based on that,
Right.
they so I think these kids have to know how much they have to pick up and how much they have to put on their own. So I
But
think,
that doesn't mean that they shouldn't use it and they shouldn't get
yeah,
the
yeah,
information from that.
exactly.
That's where that came from. She doesn't know how much she's allowed to do.
Yeah. No, I think
And
No, I think that
yeah.
the other part is that in terms of teaching, I mean, one is that you spoon feed them. The other is they actually go out and learn things which they want to learn, and they can
Mm,
learn much more that way. Otherwise, there is a
right,
certain
right.
a teacher or professor has a certain thing that he wants to give, or she wants to give, and their side they might pick up so much more, because ultimately, look, knowledge of a professor or teacher is also limited. They've done something at some point of time. If they picked up that knowledge, how much have they kept themselves updated, we don't know. But here these kids have so much more. I think it's a very, I think they have a platform where they can
Mm,
use it, and it might be a good thing.
Yeah, that situation are very difficult regard to the education, especially for Cambodian, like the poor country, even that facility as well the internet or
Yeah.
the community people, even that people who live in the city are still unaffordable to provide such that uh, the fee, the price of the internet.
Yeah.
And my boy is the teacher at the state school that just recently that the COVID outbreak are still happen. And not yesterday that the Ministry of Education that just announced to lock down another days, because just you may know that is what we call the event of the 20 February, just outbreak, and cannot yeah, cannot yeah the children cannot go to school because lockdown, and recently that we just have, you know, the COVID-19 people just infected. It's just we have now is three infected people die, and very new notion to alert to the community people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just try to connect the Zoom for my wife to have connection to teach the student yeah, online, and the student in the one class around 50 student, and they can afford to have online only 20, majority 20, and other other
That's
the
very
other
sad. Eh?
30 cannot
That that'll be a sad
yeah
part if
very
that happens. Then if the
difficult
kids,
for the
so I
yeah
think basically the internet
yeah
connectivity is going to be the major thing to be done, because that can actually be a very equalizing thing. But if it is not there, it can be the more discriminating thing if you don't have that today. So I don't know how they're going to work, because India that way is
yeah
lucky. India, the internet connectivity is quite good. At least mobile connectivity is very
right
large spread out
Yeah.
in our
yes
cities, in our large cities and
mobile
everything.
is yeah
No, even in the cities and all. I mean, we have obviously fiber optic cables and everything. It's so cheap. I mean, you can get what I get. What it's about $15. You get unlimited data at 200 Mbps. What else do you want in life? You can't get better than that. So that way we are lucky.
yeah
But otherwise, but you were saying, but Sawat, in terms of materialism, in Cambodia, what do you see with the children? The materialism aspect we were discussing.
uh internet my internet is not, you know, like low and cannot catch what that
Okay,
you
okay.
mentioned.
No, I
Could you
was
repeat again?
no the materialism with children in Cambodia. Is that an issue? Is that a problem that are happening there?
Yeah, that also the problem for that the middle class people, that they can afford that some phone device, Android, mobile phone,
Hmm.
Samsung iPhone, that they can use, you know, the phone to please the children, so
Hmm.
that they do not make trouble with their, their yeah.
That-
So they use the phone, let them, you know, watch every day,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Just
this
to keep
also
them.
very concerned that they yeah, you know, like
And,
this
and
very
and very young kids. I've seen that you see that 2 3 year old kids are given the phone to keep them busy, and you don't know what they're watching and how much they're watching. Then it is
yeah,
Well,
as
you
well
know,
get
I'm
the
going to say,
material.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, the one hand is the material aspect of it, but in terms of the phone, if the parents are using that to help them develop, because I know that my sons are good at the internet, because when we lived in Indonesia, everything was cheap because I think it was all pirated software.
Mhm.
but but we could give them software, any software they wanted, and it helped them explore the internet. And that's why now they're really good programmers, because they could learn all of that on their own. So giving them some freedom to explore on the internet is good. It has to be balanced though, so that they're not getting into, so if you're giving them the phone to do exercises that help them learn, and some of those games are designed for that, that's good. But if you're giving it to them to just do stuff, then maybe it's not good. So I think parents have a role to play in that, in
I
how
know.
they develop their children,
No, I know
and use
these
it as a
kids
developmental tool rather than a
e- entertainment thing. No,
yes.
I saw these kids. They like, as one kid was about 2 years old, the other I think 4 years old. They were given the phone when they came. I mean, when one kid came from school, was given the phone, and just to watch cartoons so that they won't say anything, don't do
Yeah.
anything, sitting in one corner, and it becomes an addiction. Becomes an addiction. But are we moving away from the whole spirituality thing? What we need is each of you to tell me what is it that there is some reading that you have done, something that you are influenced by. Please, each one has to do that. So Lisa, what is it that some reading, some spiritual reading that you do, something that you're
Mm,
influenced by?
don't start with me now. I have to think about it. Now we're shifting gears. I have to shift. Give me a minute to shift.
You're not that old. You're not that old.
It's not a
Okay,
matter
Kato,
of
Kato will go. Kato will go. Kato, please. You have to. Yeah, it's like you have to teach us. You have to take us through some nice spiritual learning, teaching.
Well, I think I have spoken quite a lot already, but I've, yeah, I found there's a one video clip which I'd like to share with you, right?
yeah.
Yes, that's good.
And
This is what you have to do.
yeah, let me see how I can do that.
But look, even in Japan, Japanese philosophy and everything, you have to take us through that, because things that you have been taught when you were young, which is something that you take for granted, might be things that will be new for us.
Mhm. I'm just yeah, I'm just checking that I have the right ones. Right.
Oh, I became Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Mm.
It
Sorry.
shows that I'm not particularly good at the internet. So it should be there. Mm. Ah, yeah, this one. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Ah,
Have a
Yes.
look.
So Kato always has some animal one coming up.
that's
Well,
good though.
I love animals.
But you
More
have
than
some.
human beings.
We like them.
Yeah.
He's just telling us that you are worse than animals, kind of thing.
No, animals are
Yeah.
people too. Think
Yeah.
about Native Americans call animals people. They're all people. We're all beings.
Yeah. Do you notice something funny, strange?
Mhm.
You see, sheep, a flock of sheep is chasing a dog. What we usually expect is the other
The
way
dog,
around.
yeah.
Right? The dog will chase and push the sheep into certain directions, right?
But look at the size of the dog also. Those dogs are big dogs.
No,
The
but
other-
the sheep are playing with the dog. They're
Yeah, yeah.
playing.
Do you think they are
Yeah,
playing?
that's the question exactly. Are they play?
I think they are playing, or have they been conditioned to follow the dog because this is a sheepdog?
Are they chasing away the dog, or are they following the dog? Are they playing? Now these are the questions
No,
which have
I
to come.
think they're playing.
This is how
Mind
the
you,
mind functions.
this dog doesn't look like a typical sort of sheep dog. Right?
No, he
Like,
doesn't.
right.
That's why I think they're playing, and that they like the playing.
But also one thing I noticed is that they are not sort of the babies or the young children. They are all grown up, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they're chasing away the dog, Lisa. Who knows?
No, you know what? We never lose that capacity to play, no matter how old we are. And everyone thinks we should, or that's something that society taught us. But internally, I mean, when I go to see my mother, I used to, because I can't right now, you know, I can, with all these people in their wheelchairs that can hardly move in the nursing home, if you go in and you start playing, everybody gets very bright and they play too. And that's because we all love that sense of play. That sense of play is, I think, is so important, you
Absolutely.
know,
That,
to living, and we shouldn't ever lose it. That's why
exactly.
I have stuffed animals.
Exactly. The kid in you should not. I mean, the kid has to. That kid is there. You can't do anything about it. It's there. How much you want to let it come out is the main thing.
You know, there was a whole discussion, and this I believe, right? When I was one of those discussions you asked about yesterday, that we had the discussion about the difference between selfishness and I mean childishness and childlike behavior.
Yeah.
And childishness is that, you know, that selfishness, that, you know, thinking about me. But childlike behavior, that is displaying the playfulness. And that's what happens with creativity. Creativity comes from that. When I see, okay, so I facilitate scientists doing scientific problem solving, so chemist and things like that. So if there's a problem, what I see and I love, and it's one of the things I love when I'm working with these groups, is that you see in scientists this playfulness, this like, oh, wait a minute, maybe if I try this in experiment, maybe if I try that, and that childlike playfulness comes in. That's where creativity comes from. That's where, and if you think about spirituality, that's the most spiritual, because that's part of that connection to the spiritual essence, that playfulness. Think about Krishna, you know, and think about the whole incidents with butter, you know, that kind of
But Lisa,
playfulness.
you have to give the whole story. You have to give the whole story
I
because
don't remember the story, except that I know that he had stolen all this butter from everybody, and that no one could get angry with him because he was so cute and he was so innocent, and that beauty. But that's also part of life, because we know that. And when we look at each other with those eyes, when we look at each other with that, you know, those eyes, then we don't judge them, and we don't take them in that sense.
but
Maybe you can tell the story better. I'm referring to it, but I
no, no,
don't.
I always like other people to tell the story because something new comes out of it. So you heard something, whatever. These are, look, for us, these are all stories. You can make anything up, not an issue. As long as there is something good about it, why not? But the main thing is that we have this Lord Krishna, so we have a god called Krishna. So and all these various activities when he was young and all those things that he was doing, stealing butter from people. He used to love butter. So all those things are nice. I mean, that whole concept that yes, there is a child there in all of us, which just needs to be let out.
It should always be there. I mean, that is part of that is if you are, it should always be a part of the, you know, that delight. I mean, when you think about leaders, even in leadership, or you think about, you know, when they can display that little bit of childlike behavior, that essence, you know, we are drawn to it. So
I think
I
what
mean,
we should no, what you should list out, Lisa, is that what are those characteristics or these traits that you would think from a child's perspective, what a child like would be, and let's list them out and let's see what people do end up having or what they keep
mm,
suppressing. So curiosity would be one.
curiosity is definitely the one, and looking at the world as if you're looking at it for the first time,
Yeah.
because we forget to look at the world with awe. We forget to look at the newness of it. You know, we keep thinking it's old. So that's another childlike quality.
Right.
Um, and
Ready to learn all the time.
ready to learn, ready to learn, being ready to to explore something, you know, and that fearlessness also comes from that, you know, because that's part of also living that sense that, you know, that there's always a tomorrow.
But the conditioning that the kids are, whatever we do to the kids as they are growing up, that aspect of it also maybe takes away a lot of that childlike aspect that, like you said, to explore fearlessly. But if you keep telling them in communities, I mean, why are there differences between communities? Because someone tells the kids, or they hear people talking about, oh, those people will do this to you if you go out there, you do that. So those, that whole group, like in your, that hills and the other thing that you were talking about, those two types of people. So someone has put them in their head, it's not that it came up
Mm.
on their own. So that aspect of it, whether we can actually let them be, at what, till what age can you just let them be? That's the, I think that is important, what we have to try and look at. So
It's
what
all
the,
in balance, right? So we'll be very, you know, balance. No, the yin and the yang, the, you know, the that's balance is always an issue.
no,
You know,
balance is one thing. Balance is one thing. The fact is that as you grow older, there are certain thought processes, some concepts that you have in your mind. Now, should you be putting those into the kids? Our kids actually, are we doing some kind of, I mean, are we going wrong there, where we say that we are going to, in whatever way, teach them, and whenever they're growing up, to be able to tell them what to do? Are we getting a lot of our baggage onto them, which maybe was wrong in the first place?
I think that a child has developed most of their belief systems and most of their culture and values by the age of 6.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And most of that has been taken in without someone saying, this is what you have to believe, but more or less in what they've observed around them and the behaviors and how people have interacted. So a lot of that comes in just those first few years. So
Which
it's
means,
looking at that. Maybe there's things we need to change, but maybe there's not things we need to change. Maybe we
or
need
is
to
there,
change
maybe there's an
ourselves and
experiment.
just be more exploratory
Yeah.
ourselves, and that's what we'll teach children. Not
Okay.
not that we directly teach them, but we change ourselves to be more like that, and then that's how they'll grow up.
So, Kato, what are the childlike things that you think are the childlike things that we maybe need and everyone needs?
There's another thing which I'd like to show to you, right?
Yep.
Is it
Yep.
okay?
Please,
Has
that's my
nothing to
come.
do, right? Nothing to do with the child, right? But but because Lisa told us about the scientist, right? So I thought that'd be probably appropriate. And have a look. I'm doing a free advertisement for the organizer, but this hit me my inbox about a week ago, right? Science and spirituality, and what a coincidence.
Yes. Yes. Interesting.
And I think Vikram, you said that one professor may have one area, but we need to go into the sort of much wider sort of
Yep.
scope here.
Yep. Yep.
We're talking here 3 professors, right? And that's going to be held. By the way, I'm not participating because it's online things, probably against my sort of time zone, right? I cannot keep up working there. But what is I find interesting is sort of the issues or keywords we have spoken already in this series, right, have been covered in one or two of these sort of areas. For example, right, this chapter talks about the new science of interconnectedness. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, you talked about interconnections,
Mhm.
connectedness, right?
Yep.
And so there is somebody who is going to talk about this, right? Which I found it's quite interesting, right? Although it doesn't use the word spirituality, right? But that's one element which he has picked up. Right? By the way, I'm not paid by the professor.
Kato, that was interesting. I was just reading that. I was just reading that top, the one on top. The first one, he was talking about how everyone, whatever that interaction that you have, how it changes things, that interlinked aspect there. That's interesting.
Yeah. I can send you the link to this
Yeah,
one by chat. You can do it. He has given also the reading list, right? And I can tell you, if you diligently read all of these, you need a year at least, not a month, right?
Now you understand why I don't read. This is exactly why I don't read.
That's another reason.
I'll read them all.
Oh, you read them all, right? Good.
I read everything. I read, but one thing is that I fortunately learned how to read quickly and how to I don't know what the right word is, that sort of glaze over it. So I know how to do that too.
No, pick up the gist. Yes, do that, Lisa, but you have to do it and tell us about it.
Yes.
It's interesting. These topics are very interesting.
Second one is yoga and meditation, right? Which is sort of one of the topics frequently raised by our colleagues probably 2 weeks ago. Right?
Yeah.
A couple of them saying that I'm doing every day. My day start with meditation. Right? And sure, these are the people who are scientists, right? Who tend to be looking at the brains, right?
Yes.
So may look things differently from us, but well, it's mindfulness is also there, right? So it's all there, and the last things is this is also interesting, right? Spiritual experiences and self-transformation, right?
Exactly.
Well, it's a week ago we talked about all of the spiritual experiences, right?
This is very interesting.
It's there, right? And at the end, this chapter is quite interesting. The Dr. Neuberg, again, I'm not paid by him, but
okay.
He said
a number of times that you said so, now we are suspecting that now we are.
Is it too obvious? Is it
too obvious? I am not being paid, but let me tell you about this. But I'm not.
So with that introduction, let me just quote what he said. He believes that it is important to keep science rigorous and religion religious. That's interesting, right? Because this is the point I raised at the first time when I joined this series. I said that from my point of view, spirituality is different from religion, right? And that raised a bit of eyebrows there. That was exactly what I wanted. Thought-provoking, and people started talking there. Right?
No, we have to. This aspect definitely needed to be put out, because that is exactly what we're trying to get at. I mean, you can talk about religion being a pathway or whatever people might say, but finally we are not going beyond that. And now you've gone to a level even beyond that, into the neuroscience aspect of it.
But mind you, when we talk about the scientists generally, particularly so-called natural scientists rather than social scientists, right? Science is antithese to the Christianity. Right? History tells us, right? Well, arguably, right? Because what used to be is that what the church said was the true. So the earth doesn't move, or it stays there, right? And the science said, no, that's not true, right? So it's a history of the scientists is always critical and always try to remove the bias, and quite often against religions, right?
But in our case, no, but Kato, in our case, in Hinduism, everything is available. Science is available as part of that.
I think that's why I find Hinduism is very tolerant, accommodating. It's also similar to Buddhism, right?
Similar,
Mhm.
But
I keep saying Buddhism has come out from Hinduism. It has
yes,
come out
yes,
from there. It has come out from
that's
there.
Yeah, that
absolutely
is
right. Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when we have my knowledge on the sort of Western Christianity is quite limited, but am I right that the 10th commandment, or what's stated in the Old Testimony, right? The number one starts that don't believe in other religion, right?
Hmm.
Right? It's a very exclusive one. So
Mm.
and all the
Technically, it says
Judaism,
don't believe in other
Christianity,
gods.
Muslims, right? It stems from that.
Mm.
You must believe me, nobody else, right? And that's quite interesting difference at the start. Right? And again, I don't mean any criticism against Christianity there, right? But that's why I try to keep a bit of a difference and just try to see religions, somehow, sort of, with a bit of
Pinch of
a bit
salt.
of salt, pinch
Yeah,
of
pinch of
salt
salt.
there.
No, I think the main thing, that's why
Mm.
I didn't even want to get into that discussion, because what happens finally is it'll be justification of what the religion says, and all that will be discussed. And finally, the larger picture of what we are talking about, which is way beyond that. So that aspect, that's why I didn't even want that discussion to even start. But if in from religion, if there is some kind of a spirituality which comes, let's say like this topic that you have, yoga and spirituality and mindfulness and everything. So in that case, if there's a connection, why not? That that, that part of it we're okay with, because
I just
finally,
sent a link, right? So if
yeah,
you want
yeah.
to do the reading list, right,
Mhm.
they are available.
No, no, Lisa's going to do it, and she's going to educate us also. But Lisa, why don't you tell Cardo about mediation and neuroscience? There was some connection there that you had. There was some study happening there on that, where they those brain scans and everything that they did with. You said there was mediation and had actually had some change in the brain waves and everything. So something that you were telling me.
Oh no, that's not. That's actually the on not mediation itself, because it's not even a part of mediation, but uh, on emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
So now they have. So the what they did was they put someone in one of these chambers, and they started talking to them, and they noticed that if you are not trying to lead them in a direction and you're allowing them to do their own thinking, then they get into a good brain space. I mean, and I'm not going to go into the terms because I get confused between para whatever and all of the medical terms, but it definitely moves people away from those negative thinking where they're closed and into an open space. But if you try to even tell them, like suppose you want to give somebody advice, so if you give somebody advice even in a nice way, it starts to close them down and move them into a single space. So this is the interesting thing, and it supports, to me, it supports mediation, and especially those interventions and things we want to do that help support the party's decision making, because that will help move them out of that and help them resolve their own conflict, rather than, if you try to tell them, here's what you should do, they may do it, but it hasn't moved them in that space where they're open.
Hmm.
And they're less likely, also other research has shown that they're less likely to, for instance, in a mediation agreement, if if they've had an evaluative mediation and they've been advised to do something, they're less likely to keep the agreement than if they thought about it on their own. So research has also shown that. So in terms of, what techniques to use, the more you can use to help the parties decide on their own,
But I think,
would
but
be
Lisa, the
more like.
important thing is that who sponsored that study? Did the Facilitative Mediators Association fund that study?
No.
This division that you've done between these
I
mediators.
don't have a division between it. I'm just saying what I've heard of the research. No, I
Actually,
don't know who
my
sponsored it, but
my
but
problem. Actually, my problem is, yeah, yeah.
the emotional intelligence thing has nothing to do with mediation.
Finally, you brought it down to evaluative and facilitative. Some way got that connection going somewhere there.
Actually, no, I was not. I actually was bringing it down to facilitative versus transformative.
But I tell you what my problem here is. India mediation is not happening, and on top of that, everyone is confusing everyone first of all on the law. Mediation, conciliation, potato, potato going in. On top of that, evaluative, facilitative, transformative, and do the mediation at least. We'll get to all these terminologies later. So before anything starts, there's so many technical things which are being discussed. That's why I said let's not even talk about the theory and everything. There's a
But
natural ability. Take that
yeah,
natural ability
okay,
through.
take it all out though, but that's not what I'm talking about. So
I
take it
know.
out. I only gave it as an example, so wrong on me. It still means that people themselves, I mean, the thing we should be getting out of it is what works for people so that they are happier with,
Yeah.
their own decision making. What
Right.
works for them? And what works for them over time, and then what is ethically right.
Absolutely. But
We
now
don't
on
talk
the
about ethics enough.
May I have a question? Yeah,
yeah, yeah, Sabah, please.
yeah, yeah. Regard to that, your experience, when you keep in mind regard to the spirituality for the case of mediation generally, that as I observe, and that most of that the case, for example, like the family dispute, as well that most of that divorce case, something like that, is more. Is it that your experience is use more about that the spirituality or more technical to address such of that um, relationship, family and husband, why compared to the commercial dispute?
Well, actually, what I'm trying to look at is that there is a certain whatever spirituality that a mediator brings in or has, that part of it will be there in terms of mediation of any kind. You bring in something into that room, what you call it now these days, obviously the virtual room, but there is something that you are able to bring out as energy there. Now everyone will do it differently with different people. It's not that there is might be because there are energy levels on all sides, but I feel that that aspect that a mediator brings in will be the same whatever kind of mediation, would be family or commercial and anything, except in maybe in family people are more, maybe might be more open to absorb it or take it, and maybe commercial there are so many other factors going on. There is the money aspect and other things which businesses obviously think of that, and sometimes these energies which are flowing through, maybe that doesn't flow in as much as they should. But I think there is something to that. I'm trying to get to that. I mean, look, this is just a starting point. We're just developing it, and we are obviously, the discussion on spirituality has moved away to other areas sometimes in our discussion. But I think as we go along, there will be something which will come out from the mediator's perspective, like in evolution of a mediator, what we've been discussing. I see a lot of common things there. I'm not discussing it because that is for everyone to observe and take it as they want to, but I see there is something there. So even in the spirituality aspect of it, we will, as we discuss with a lot of people, and that's why I want them to come out with what their learnings are, what their influences are, and when they talk about it, what they are picking up, from where they're picking up. I think there might be something we might get a connect on, and I think it'll be go across mediation of any kind. And that is
So,
to the larger level. When you talk about mediation in terms of larger community affected things, could be religion based, could be countries and everything, territories, I think there will be a certain flow which might come up there.
so one thing, but I'm not sure I totally understood the question, but you know, in my experience working with couples in divorce, especially when matters of children, that when they have had an opportunity to do a mediation as opposed to going through the court, because the court sets up a competition. There's a competition for the goods, there's a competition for who's going to get the children. And mediation allows people then to not think of it as a competition, but more of a collaboration, and moving to that, I think helps. And in many ways, that is more spiritual because it's more about trying to bring people to a place where if they're having a separation, that they should be able to still talk to one another.
No, but I'm saying what
And
he's saying. So what he's
definitely,
saying
you
is,
know, I
yeah.
put on the table when I do a divorce mediation, I put on the table, okay, what's going to happen if you get a boyfriend or a girlfriend later on? How are you going to feel about that? Talk about how you're going to resolve it before you get there. And that's also part of it. It's getting them into that situation because then they, especially with children, they can continue to talk to each other and work with each other around the children, and they don't have to separate as enemies. And I think that, to me, that's the main thing, and that's the spiritual aspect of it too, is that keeping that connectedness,
No, what he's
no
so
matter
what
how you do it or what process you use.
no, what he's saying is that is spirituality more relevant when it comes to family mediation, or is it also relevant when it comes to commercial mediation? So that is where I'm trying to say that this will
I think it's
flow.
relevant in both because we don't lose our spirituality because we're in a business. We think we're supposed to, but we don't.
And that is what I say. You're bringing your spirituality in, but not losing it. Actually, bringing it in, and you're bringing it in anywhere. It could be in any
Hmm.
situation. So now the fact is that what is it? I think we've discussed quite a bit on that aspect of what is spirituality, because these will be so individual. So, but in terms of your specific influences, I want to know that. So, Sawat, in terms of the Buddhist concept of spirituality, is there some learning, something that you can quote? You can teach us something. Yes, Sawat, from Buddhism. Please teach us something from.
Yeah, internet is also, but I
What you
can
can do, I'll tell you what you do, Sawat. What you do is you switch off your video, because if the video is off, I think the signal might be a little better.
yeah, yeah. Cambodian people that believe the spirituality is, like that. The that they believe is like a soul of the human being, and they also believe it as, like the religious spirituality, and most of that, the people who are low educated, that they very believe it, the spirituality, and based on the Buddhist teaching. Actually, it's not that what that the Buddhists taught to the Buddhists, but some people, they treat is like spirituality is from the Buddhists, and as well from the what the believer from their God, that what that the people Cambodian believe such like that. And some people that they believe, like, oh, most majority people who believe on that spirituality, and as well believe on the what the Buddhists as like abstract, and when when the people have a challenge with that external factor, and then they do not have a capacity for their own self, and then they what they call they pray from the outside body, and then they trust on that because they have no choice and no capacity, and no one have them, and then they trust on that spirituality, and then decide of that just like outside internal factor. So but generally that when we some people who have educated um, uh, um, good educated, that they translate that spirituality as, you know, like the mental or the body or the spiritual, the health, something like that. And then and as well the psychological, what that the people who have high educated, they understand well regard to spirituality, and then they treat it like um, the the religion, as well the help regard to support when that when they you know, like I mean, like regard to the spiritual of the body, of the soul, something like that. Yeah, that Cambodian people, they as well the culture also trust with that, like, you know, the Buddhist teaching that they believe such art can have a lot what we call spirituality. They treat like, you know, morality and ethics, something like that, and core value, the value of the spiritual, as well the core value of that the virtue of the human being, some such of that. Yeah.
Basically, you have to first of all cleanse yourself. You have to be ethically, morally, absolutely clear, and then maybe move up steps as you go along, something like that. So I think the mind, body, and soul connectivity somewhere there, where like we have yoga. I mean, what Kato
Yeah.
spoke about, yoga, meditation for the mind and the body, and then you
Hmm.
have whatever
Yeah.
you have, whatever, I mean, in terms of your mind, or a lot of other factors to cleanse yourself from all these, I mean, in terms of ethics and all that Savatha said. And then you get to the soul aspect of it. And then when all of them are aligned, I think there is a certain spirituality that you bring in. Something like that, Lisa? Is there something that I'm getting there?
Sorry, I had to leave now. Vigram, Lisa, and
Oh,
Churo, and thank you very much for this
thank you, Savat. Thank
great
you, Savat, for
Thank
coming
you,
in.
discussion.
Saad.
I
Thank
hope to
you.
have joined the next. Yeah.
And next time you're going to
Bye,
tell
Jim
us, yeah,
Biblia.
yes, you're going to be giving
Bye.
us
Yeah.
from
Thank
Buddhism
you.
also.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. See you.
Yep. You. See you.
So I think some connection there, I think I'm trying to create there. The mind, body, and soul being in line with each other, and how you get it together is, I think, what is important. So cleanse your mind, keep your body fit, and then the soul will take where it has to take you. Anything there? Lisa's thinking. Something's going to come out of that.
I'm thinking.
Something, anything to do with what I'm talking about, or something else?
No, I'm thinking about it.
So I think first thing, let's work on the body. We have to make sure that our body is fit in all ways. I think everyone has to work on. So so there will be specific your mediation training that you do, Lisa. Please, body has to be the important part of it. Your
You know
yoga has to
what?
happen.
I have never done any exercise during a mediation training.
Now
Maybe
start
we
that.
should add that to a
Exactly.
training section.
So that's what we're saying. Now there is exercise required. That part of it, I'll have to put on
Just
my
do
playlist.
exercises.
Yeah, on my playlist, there will be one playlist on healthy body. So make sure that
We
you
should
take
do
care of
this
that.
for all online sessions too. We should, have one session
Everyone
where
now.
we're doing an online session. Okay, but here's the part of the session where everybody stands up and runs in place, or
Yeah, why not? Actually,
stretch.
go for 4 hours, and in 4 hours you can do some exercise while you're at it. Nice fit mediators will have.
Actually, I do that on online with children too, but especially when I'm doing work with the people in reentry. I'll do some like an exercise where, oh, here's a ball, and I pretend like I'm throwing a ball, and I throw it to someone, and then they have to catch it, and then they're the ones who talk, and that gives us a little bit more playfulness
No,
while we're doing it.
no, I
But
think in general, I think that part of it. When I'm getting at a certain, one thing on terms of spirituality is this, that I'm looking at this whole combination, mind, body, and soul. And if you don't take care of your body, then definitely something is going to get affected there. So let's look at body. That's easy. What is that? It's exercise, and it's one sec.
I don't know that you
Sorry,
choose one over the other to start with. Start where you want.
yes. Are you joining us or not?
Start. You should start where you want to
Okay,
start.
okay, okay.
What do you think, Gato?
Okay, no problem.
Well, I was trying to listen to what he was talking on the phone.
No,
Sorry.
no, that was Mr. Akesanya. I was telling you last time he wasn't able to find the link, so I sent him a message. I called him up, so he was just calling back saying that he won't be able to join us.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is that the body part of it, I think, is a must. Okay. Then on the mind part of it, what Savat was saying.
Sorry. Before we go, right, the book we are perhaps talking from the perspective of mediator
Yeah.
for herself or for himself. What we need to keep our eyes is there, for example, physical state, body state of the participants. Right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
we do not have monitors on the heart rates, but that's how our eyes, right,
But no, I think
can
what
be a good sensors.
no,
Right?
Kato, what can happen is that mediation sessions could start with, like, you have this laughing club. Everyone could just be made to just laugh before the session starts.
Yes.
Look, laughing is supposed to be good, clapping is supposed to be good. Just make them do that. Maybe
Yeah.
things will change, the atmosphere will change. So maybe that part of it from their end also is important.
And also, as things tend to take many sort of hours, right? People get tired,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
they physically, yeah, for example, they need a bit of a boost. Right? For example, I'm diabetic, so I need take whatever sugars and sometimes insulin, etc., to keep fit. Right?
Yep.
And might apply to other people there who are the decision makers. We are facilitators, right?
Yep.
But so we need to be mindful of other people's sort of health or their, and that's a bit difficult for challenging for mediators, I think, because in most cases we haven't met these people. We don't know the people long enough, right?
Right.
We probably met on the day or the day before, right?
But that is the connection that you have to create, Kato. In that moment, you're supposed to be connected. That is where your spirituality will come in, where you just connect, tuck, like that.
No, the thing is that you can never, because even though we're presented with, whatever issues or problems that they're talking about, we can't know what came before or what will come after. So we have to be in the moment, which is, that it in itself is a spiritual aspect, that we are in the moment with people in that moment, and with them and what the issues are. And so for me, that's what's so important. That's where, aligning, because we have to align ourselves as mediators, to be able to take that, to remove ourselves from the problem and to be in the moment with where they are, so that not myself is not on the table, they're on the table. So that also takes an alignment. It takes a mind alignment. You have to remember that, okay, I'm not going to say, okay, they're talking a lot and I'm looking at my watch because, oh my goodness, when am I going to get out of there? Because they keep talking and talking and talking. That's not what I can do. So I have to remind myself, no, this is their time and their space, and listening to them and aligning that I think is a very spiritual kind of exercise.
So I think, look, the spiritual aspect of it in terms of your presence itself, where you have a presence without you having to show it through your body language or your tone or anything like that. That the presence by itself, to be able to create a presence, being there in that moment, and still not being in any way imposing on what's around you or the people around you or anything. I think that comes from a lot of
Can I
spirituality.
ask a question to both of you? Right? Online mediation, is it make it more challenging for us to maintain that connectedness?
Not at all. For me, though, there is no. I mean, I really find it perfectly good and totally works for me.
I
And
think it depends because like if you're doing mediation again, I think referring to what was said before, what was the gentleman's name? Savad?
Savat.
Yes, what he said about levels. So if I am doing a mediation with somebody who's comfortable with this format, so they're putting themselves in the space where you can connect, it's probably easier. But if I'm putting myself in the space from someone who's not comfortable using the internet or using this skill, they don't have the skill to be able to allow themselves to connect, so that it becomes a little bit more challenging to build the connection or to get them to a space where they feel more comfortable. I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind letting people shut off their
Video.
video if they feel more comfortable sharing, because I can pick up nuances in
The tone.
voice
Yep.
quality,
Yep.
as long as they turn it on temporarily. It does mean that it involves a little bit more skill on the part of the mediator to be able to help to work with them where they are. So again, like I said, it depends on their comfort, but you can help that as a mediator, help them feel more comfortable so that connection is there.
Okay, I'm saying that, okay, look, because the topic is spirituality, but what I'm trying to say is that whole concept of spirituality creates antenna. Antenna are there, the antenna come out. So when those antenna come out, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Like you said, it could be a phone call, could be a video, could be, in general, you might be picking up from wherever, we don't know, because these are things which science might not be able to tell us, but how energy flows between people, what happens, we don't know. So I think those basically to just get those antenna up, and then how it works, let them work. We try and, or through our conscious mind, trying to process that information that is collected by those antenna, we can't do it. We don't have that kind of computing power, that there is a computer, a quantum computer sitting there which is going to do it for you and is going to give you the output. We don't have to now filter that output or start looking at that output and from our limited conscious mind trying to see what it's telling you. Let the output come, let it be used. And that, if that you can reach that flow, I think that works. I mean, works for me. I don't know about other people.
But you have two people communicating with each other. And the challenge then also is not just the challenge that we have as mediators, but the challenge that they have connecting to one another.
Which is
And
where you come in.
and so that's where the challenge is. It's not just us connecting to them or our, we might have it all out, but they are also connecting to one another. So how
That's where you come in. That's what I'm saying. That's where you come in, and that's where
it
when you are
is,
connected
it
with when
is.
their signals are going out, They might not be able to catch each other's signal, but you can catch their signals, and then you can whatever you need to do can spread that between them, so that that is why you're required. If they could between themselves communicate and they could do things, then what are you required for?
But
Just
they
go home.
can communicate. Here's the thing.
They
I believe that
can.
they
Look,
can. My job
through the
is
channel.
not.
You're the
Wait, wait,
channel.
wait, wait, wait. It's very important, because this is very important. Is a very important distinction. If you believe that the parties have the capability to resolve their own conflict,
Yeah.
then then my job as a mediator is to make sure that they are communicating with one another and deciding
That's
what they want to do, and not that I am deciding, or trying to move them in a direction.
no. Actually,
So
let's give an
it's
example of
about
your
what you
Wi-Fi.
believe, and
Look at
I
your
believe that just in that moment they're not being able to do it, but in ordinary circumstances, an ordinary day, we all are able to resolve our conflicts, but then we get into certain space that we get stuck,
no.
and
But
so
you
they're
look at
just stuck.
no. Look at your Wi-Fi router. You have a Wi-Fi router in the house. Now that
Hmm?
Wi-Fi, that internet connectivity that you have goes to the router. Now from the router, it goes to the phones and the computers and everything. So the router is sitting there. It's connecting all these things. It's not them directly doing it to each other. The phone is not communicating directly with the laptop. Is going through a channel. You can connect your phone. You can get data from your phone on your laptop through the router, through those signals that are going. You can send out, you want to watch YouTube on your television, you can send it directly to your television, but the router goes through the router, so they're communicating. Ultimately the router is not the one who is going to do anything. That signal from that phone has to go. So that YouTube video that you want to watch, that signal is going from from the phone to the TV, but it had needed a channel. So you are the channel. Don't try thinking that I am the one doing it. They are the ones doing it. That connectivity, you have to create the connectivity. Actually, just an example, Lisa. Don't get so seriously into the example that you start dissecting the science of it. But that's how the router works. So now the spirituality aspect is it that your internet connectivity coming to you so that you can do value add to it.
Can I raise another perspective, but related to this one? Lisa, you said two people communicating, right? And when it just reminded me that I place the importance on the caucus discussions, typically because I do more on the business side, the clients and their lawyer, right, and myself. So it's a tri-party relationship, right? And each time, every 10 minutes, the dynamics are shifting, right? Because one situation that I'm working together with the client's counsel, try to persuade the client, yeah? Or sometimes I say something critical to the counsel, not to the clients, right? But watching how the client is reacting to that, because from that I can feel the relationship between the attorney and the clients. It's therefore it's a tri-party arrangement. It's all moving every 5 minutes, right? And I found that if doing it on this flat screen makes it more challenging for me, right? Because if we are in the same room, right, then I can sense it, feel it, right? How the other person is looking at me or at the other side, etc. Right?
But here, Kattu, you have everyone on the screen. Now you can watch all of them at the same time in one glance. You can see
But not if
actually.
he's doing a caucus. That's the issue,
In
right?
a caucus, right? Because the eye gaze, where he or she is looking, right? That's also misaligned, right? When he looks, right? I hope technology will come up with some new sort of gadget there.
No, gadget will be that the camera will be in the screen. That's what's going to happen.
If we have a 3D screen, that may change, right? but at the moment we have a flat, the 2D screen, and
So
I'm not saying it.
no,
Yeah,
work has been done on that, Kato. There is work has been done on creating this whole meeting space where you're actually sitting there, where you can actually in, I mean, you can actually 3D or hologram or whatever that effect might be.
hologram.
So you can actually be part of a meeting with people. It's developing. I think that whole it'll take some time, but it's
Yes.
getting there.
Yeah.
So, for me, okay, so I'm thinking, for me, one of the things that I do is slow down. I have to slow down.
That's good.
Slowing down and doing a little bit more listening, because that will help to discover that. Of course, I was laughing because I was thinking, what? It's already slower in Japan, so it would have to be really, really slow. Sorry. At least in my perspective.
Mind you, the people from Japan would not notice the difference.
Maybe not.
They are slow anyway.
That's true. That's true.
But mind you, for example, at the moment, now 3 of us are communicating, right? And we can do it because we have met a couple of times already. We know each other, right? If it is new, and for example, I don't know at this moment whether Vikram is looking at me or Lisa. So hopefully this new technology will come much quicker, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's true. No, I would like that too.
yeah.
I am going to the extent of saying that, look, don't even think about all that. Like, reach a point where you can actually feel the energy without even, you don't need to look at anyone. You can, there is a, you can make out now. I can, yeah, say, no, it's there. I know,
I
but
used to feel, no, wait, you know what? Reminds me. Okay, so back in the day, I was part of the early pioneers. We had trying to explore the internet before we had all these websites. So it was mostly text. And we used to have a lot of conversations on text. And I found that you could start to feel what people were thinking in just through the keyboard. I think that's the point we have to come, because when you add the
exactly.
visual, you lose that ability that is also totally it's non-visual and non-verbal, but you can feel it through the keyboard. So I think we have to reconnect to that.
I'm saying that let it. It's not an exclusive thing that you can't do this or that. I'm saying that will also come. This will also come. Just everything come. Don't you don't the moment, but it will only happen when you stop thinking. It has to, like I said, there is a quantum computer there which knows how to pick up everything without you having to tell it. You people have theory in your head. You have lots of theory. I don't. So I have not read that book and that book, and I'm not thinking, oh, now this person is doing that. What, I have no theory. The mind
You're
has
losing
created
all the fun exploration of childhood.
that. Look, theory comes from experiences and computing by the brain. That computing of the brain does it on its own also. It doesn't need someone to tell me this. The brain has done that. Thought process has gone through that brain. So now if I start questioning that, or even asking it to do something, I've moved its thought process from something which is already picking up. It's already picking up things from wherever. I don't need to tell it anything. It's picking up and giving me the output. Now, how that output comes out from me is also important. So that output is very essential to come out in that flow itself. But if that it's coming through this much of a pipe, and I put this much of a pipe in front of it to take out the output, then I have misused that whole processing power that I have. So let it flow like that. When it flows up and down in that manner, that is where that spirituality, you call it whatever you want to call it, that's where it starts working. So there is that energy connection or whatever I'm saying, but that has to happen when you let it happen. The moment you say that I need to, from my side, want to do anything, then you have anyway limited your own ability. So no thought, no thinking, nothing. You're just sitting there without any thought. I'm not thinking what Kato is thinking. I'm getting the thoughts by himself. I don't have to think. I'm getting the thoughts here.
Kato, do you know that I think it's a Korean process called nunchi? Numchi, I think. Numchi.
Could you tell me a bit about that? Right.
So what I understand about it, I don't know a lot about it, but it's a process where, like, if you walk into the room, you survey the room before, and you shouldn't say anything. You should just observe. So it's that process of observing people before acting and before reaction. And to me, that's a good process or a good thought to think, even for mediation. How much more can we observe? How much of the body language, of the things that are happening, because that allows us to take in the signals. And so I was just curious because I think about that.
Okay.
When I
So
read that, I
I'll
was
tell
like,
you.
oh, it's
I tell you
great.
what it says. What it says, Nunchi is the art of instantly understanding what people are thinking and feeling in order to improve your relationships in life. Having
Yes.
great Nunchi means continuously recalibrating your assumptions based on any new word, gesture, or facial expression so that you're always present and aware. This is what I'm saying. You, I don't need to read it. I just told you this. So all that theory that you're picking up, Lisa, you already have that whole, the brain has all that. It has all the potential. It knows what to do. This word was not required for me to tell me that this is what needs to be done. So
But it's like I said, it's a it's a good thing. It's about honing that. It's about, because whether you have it or you don't have it, we don't practice it. It's just like listening itself is an art. Listening is, we think, oh yeah, we can listen because we were born with that. But in order to really listen well, we have to learn, and we have to stop the brain, for Vikram, and learn to listen. Slowing down is something, I have to
I
learn
think,
to
yeah.
do,
Oh, I
because
think what we have to
we
do is we
come
have
from
to
a
go.
culture where we don't even like silence. Like, silence is really difficult for Americans. They don't like silence to hang in the room. They can't stand that, that even a second of silence is too difficult. So, learning how to let silence hang in the room also is important, because you have to let
I
those
think.
things hang in the room.
So I think, but these are might be what we need to do is maybe expand the concept, because listening is what is normally the word used is active listening. Listening. I think we have to go beyond that. It is
I
not
don't
sound.
like
It
the
is not.
word active
Yeah. No. No.
listening,
Not.
but
No. No. Listening itself. I'm saying sound
mhm.
is what it's limiting it to, which is where the problem lies. Like
That's
this
true.
nunchi concept that you said is goes beyond that. So the
Absolutely.
active, whatever, I don't know, whatever, are we going to say active nunchi?
Mhm.
Whatever.
I love Nucci. I love that when I read about it. Like, yes, that's
Okay, so
it.
basically the active nunchi that you have to do, it is a lot of factors, because our maybe our understanding of things was so limited that people had to come out with theories wherever they had to, so they could not put it down to anything beyond what the basic senses are. I'm saying there's something even beyond that. So even when you say even what I see from with my eyes, or the sound or feeling is just one part of it. There is something beyond it, which, because maybe we don't have a word for it, science doesn't know about it, doesn't mean it's not there. So you don't even question it. You don't talk about it. You don't need to define it. It is there. Now you just have to know. There's no honing required. It's all available with your brain has it. But are you going to let it do what it has to do? That subconscious or that the quantum computer that you have, let it function. We just want, I don't know why we think we are so smart that we know better than something which has a processing power billions of times what we understand. Billions of times that it's going to process and take that output. And I'll keep repeating it because that's the only way I can do it. Take that output and let it flow. Don't question it. It's like a quantum computer gives you an output, and then you pick up a calculator and start checking the result. And I will only give it out after I've checked the result. It's going to take 1 million years for you to even check that result. So let it go. Let it be. There is, when I say be yourself, it is part of that. Just let those senses and everything that you have, let them flow. Let it happen.
So didn't
And I
Kato Yes, go ahead.
Just add one thing, right? With great respect to my neighbors in Korea, right, but completely different things, right? Because our discussion reminded me of a story which I picked up from the YouTube last year. If you pick up a cat from a box, let's assume first you have a cat, right? You put in a box, right? And then you move to somewhere new, right? And of course, cat doesn't know anything, right? And then quietly you open the cat and put it there. Then what the cat would do? Then I was told cat will just freeze and watch, observe in your eyes. Right? And then if it feels comfortable, it may try to find something. But if something a bit strange happens, comes up, and it goes to somewhere and come back, right? Come back to the safe home. That's exactly what small children up to age 12, right, would do. Right? And I think gradually it becomes to sort of start feeling that it is safe here. Right? And with respect to Vikram, I don't think for that process, the brain, it's not a matter of brain, right? It's more of the lower part of the body. Right? And I think going back to mediations, our job is to make it easier for our users to go through the process, right? Yeah. So that the cat, or not, sorry, client, right? Client.
No, I think this, but let me just clarify what I was saying.
Yes.
Look, I said quantum computer. That quantum computer only functions when your mind, body, and soul are aligned.
Oh, yes,
So
yes.
that quantum computer is not your mind.
Yeah.
It's not your mind. I just use that word, what that subconscious mind and all. I use that word. I mean, these are just for general ease of use. But the fact is, when your mind, body, and soul are connected and then in line with each other and they're functioning properly on their own, they will whatever calculations they will make are things you can't even think about. It is something which it's an out, like I said, it's an output given out from something which you can't even from your side even think how it functions. What does it pick up? Where does it pick up from? Are there certain energy levels which we don't even, because we don't haven't given a word to it, we don't haven't been able to identify them, doesn't mean they don't exist. So that part of it, that let's call it something else. What do we want? Let's not call it mind or whatever. Let's, so this combination of all three working together, that X factor will take care of all these aspects. Don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I take it that it's our job to help all parties to do that work. Three things in line, right? And in all process, not only at the start, throughout the process.
No, what I'm trying to say is that, look, why the mediator's position is special is because this is where that is exactly what you have to develop to be able to get all these three aligned yourself. Because with the parties, it's not at that point of time you can bring all that together for them. All that is not going to happen there. But when if you have it, that aspect of it will flow with them, and that interconnectivity that will happen at that point of time will take care of all that. So I'm going to that extent to say that. So that is where I was giving Lisa that example of the router. It's just I mean, don't take it literally. Now Lisa's going to be thinking of how the router works and how the phone is working and how the laptop is working. Don't think about it. Just an example. I'm saying there is one thing which is developed to a level where it can pick up the internet signal. I pick it up in the sense could be through a cable or whatever it's getting. That signal comes in there. So that you need a receptor for that. Everything can't pick it up from there. Converts it into a certain signal which can then flow to other places. So to convert also, that hardware is required. So to create that hardware takes time, that processing power that you create for yourself. And then when you have all that, then that flow within all the devices. So the devices don't have to create that within themselves. To that this particular router has that. So I think that is, I mean, it's just an example. So don't take it so literally. Also, that it doesn't stay an example. It
But
becomes
it's a
more.
good example, right? I liked it. It's a good example. Yeah.
So I mean, this is easy to explain. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
easier. I won't say easy. It's easier to explain because there is these are things which are abstract concepts, and to put them down to physical thing is also. I mean, obviously, it won't come in as exactly what I am trying to put across, but at least somewhere you'll be able to understand that. And even with devices, I mean, when you talk about various types of phones and the cafe, whether that phone has a 5G capability or just a 4G capability or a 3G capability, so each device will be different, but all of them can be connected through the whatever Wi-Fi signals, and based on their limited ability, but they can at least connect to it. But there are some which can't connect at all. So how do you get to them? How do you get them involved? We can actually look at that aspect also
It's
through
somehow
SMS. So maybe through an SMS. So maybe an SMS.
it's somehow related to what we are talking earlier. That's the availability or access to the internet for children, right? And in some part of the world, it's a still big hurdle there.
Yeah, yeah,
And
Mhm.
it's conceptually the same applies to the dispute resolutions, right? Because if people are not aware of all the options, it's limit their scope. One good things which I have heard, I learned it at the mediation advocacy training about 2 weeks ago. Was a good one. The lecturer was trained and educated in America, and she quoted some psychologists saying that if you give to the small kids, say small boy, right, a hammer, right, and if that is all he has, then he use hammer for everything, right?
Mhm.
Right? Right? But if you teach him that there's a spanners and screwdrivers, etc., right, and teach him how to use screwdrivers, right? Or spoons or knives, etc., then he will realize that I don't need to use a hammer all the time. Right?
Yep.
Now, and I thought that was a very good way of explaining how the mediation should be made more widely understood. Because lack of educations
Yeah,
limiting its full potential.
But I still feel that there are
it's a
so many people.
tool.
Yeah. But I think there's
It's
so many
true.
people. I mean, my main thing is that there's so many. Such a large pool of people already who are. Well, I mean, I would say whether full time they'll be the mediators or not, but at least from their side, they even are qualified in the sense they've done some training and everything. But that pool is not being utilized properly. They don't have too much work. So this connectivity that you're saying, I feel that what Elon Musk is doing, which that whole with his satellite connectivity that he's creating, I think can actually create a good network. I mean, of people on one end who are already have that experience or whatever, and you can reach. When I keep saying you can reach the remotest village, so what work that he's doing can actually change things. I don't know whether you know how much he's charging for that. How much is charging, Lisa, on a
I
monthly
have
basis?
no idea.
Okay, whatever. Right now, look, it's the starting point, so definitely the charges will be high, but it's not so bad. I mean, if you do it at a village level, one village picks up one
Hmm.
of one of his devices, and can look how much bandwidth do you need? I mean, okay, for video conferencing and all is one thing. At least you have basic voice connectivity. Voice connectivity can start immediately, and you were saying on the voice itself, you can pick up a lot of things. There's no issue. from zero, at least there's some technology which is can be used widespread throughout the world. I think we can get there. So I think that's why I want to create this pool on one end to have that people who have that mindset. We put them together because we don't know when that whole connectivity reaches that level when people can actually benefit from it like that. You don't know how technology works, how fast these things happen because other people are also sending out satellites, smaller satellites and everything. So we don't know when things will change suddenly in terms of connectivity. What do you say, Lisa? Lisa, you in
No,
deep.
I had a sudden thought that had that actually this visual aspect of the communication in some ways inhibits people from letting their inner feelings out, that they can do it through the written word because you see, that sometimes they open up very ugly parts of themselves. But when you add the visual aspect, it inhibits them. And I wonder if that aspect also comes into mediation, that they may be inhibiting some of their thought processes.
Yeah, could be. It's because there's so much more happening when that visual thing comes in. There's so much other processing that happens that the main thought that you had, maybe at that point of time, is this cat example that like, Kato was saying. Suddenly you take it back in, and then you won't. It takes time for you to come out with it. So you all that. There are a lot of factors to it.
Because when you're in a room, you can immediately feel that, like you said, like earlier, but you have to work a little harder to feel it when you're online.
No, I think.
And and then you were talking about Elon Musk. So thinking about that, even on a larger scale, what other things would be introduced that would help minimize that? So it could be a number of things. It could be yeah. I mean, I think holograms are going to be used a lot.
Yeah, on
So,
one hand, right?
holograms, that kind of virtual reality, we'll
Yep.
have something over our head to do a mediation, and it'll be as if we're sitting in the room.
Yep.
There are all these new things that are going to come in that are going to change everything. And then how is that going to change that aspect of what we can feel or what we can do? So anyway, I am beyond my, I
Yes.
always promise my hour and a half. So
Yes, but before you leave, what I'm saying is that the fact that I think we're overthinking this whole thing, whether the video conferencing is working for us or not working for us, are we getting the right message, are we using the gestures and this and that. Once we stop that and just this is it, this is how it's going to be. Pick up what you can. The brain will pick up. It's like someone loses sight, sight.
mm,
They pick up. They don't have a choice. So you just pick it
good
up.
point.
Similarly, if you keep telling yourself, no, no, something is going to happen tomorrow, physical mediations are going to happen.
Mm.
I don't need to work on this. You won't work on it. Let it happen. It's all there. It's all you can pick up from whatever you have in front of you. You don't have to think so much. Okay. So, okay, Lisa. So now we have to
Oh, your wife
part
is
two. We'll
going to be
plan the.
so
Yeah.
happy
Yes.
now.
Yeah. But the part two, we have to date. We have to decide on the part two date.
Yeah, we have time. Let me
Uh,
relax. I still haven't recovered yet.
Nothing happened, Lisa. I mean, the whole story starts now.
Ah.
This is where the story starts. People don't know that. The evolution
Okay.
is all it's all there to happen. Okay. So see you there. See you
All
there.
right.
I'll fix up the
Bye
date.
bye.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Bye.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.